What I often think about when we're talking about bringing new skills into a business is you can't have it all. Is the relationship networks within small towns and within businesses. These are really important, amazing careers in the bush. Twenty-five, 30 years ago, farming was very much a mechanical and physical enterprise. It was very much about implements, large tractors, broad acres, and sitting in cabins driving for long hours. Things were repairable, software was only just coming out, and it was a much more direct implementation of agronomic practices. So things were mechanical and you could fix things relatively easily with a socket set. And the skills required for that type of agriculture was very much in that sort of physical, mechanical aptitude space. What we've seen since, very early implementation of controlled traffic farming all the way through to what we see today is that the digital skill set is becoming much more important in today's broadacre agriculture. And it's moved so much further along than, just controlled traffic or just precision seeding. It's all the way through from, business decision making through the agronomic sphere into, harvest and variable rate applications and variable rate seeding. So it's very much shifted from a mechanical to a digital mechanical hybrid. And the way I like to think about it is that the core skills of farming haven't changed. It's still all about getting the right genetics in the right place at the right time. But the tools that we use to do that have very much changed. And that's what this technology is it's a tool. And in the same way that you wouldn't use a socket set to fix your computer, you wouldn't hire a mechanic to run your data analytics pipeline. And that's how much the world of digital agriculture has shifted, is moving towards using the new tools that we have available to increase the profitability and the efficiency of these farming systems. What I often think about when we're talking about bringing new skills into a business is you can't have it all. So you can't have someone who's got deep agronomic expertise and a high-level technical knowledge. That person doesn't exist, and if they do, they're probably not going to fit within your organization. So I like to think about what can you train within your business. So if you are a really good farmer and you've got really great agronomic practices and skill sets, that's something that you can teach internally. So potentially hiring in someone with more technical skills that you could then teach the agronomic practices might be a good fit for your business. Alternatively, if you're an ag tech startup looking to get into agriculture, you've got deep technical knowledge, but you may not have the agronomic practices or know the farming landscape or marketing system. You bring in those skill sets and teach the technical knowledge that they need. So I think it's about being strategic and thoughtful about the types of skills you bring into the business and the ways that those skills can amplify what you do as a business. So, for instance, if you're in a traditional sort of broadacre farming background and you've been farming fairly successfully for the last 25, 30 years, but you're finding that the tools are becoming harder to use, you're having to get the John Deere tech out every 2 weeks to fix the software, potentially bringing someone with more technical and technology-driven data-first thinking into that business might be a good idea, rather than bringing in a traditional farming mechanic, agronomist, that type of role. So I think it's just about being thoughtful about what your business needs, and every business is different. And I think finding your technology people is difficult. So trying to design your staff around what your business does and the gaps in your business is a really thoughtful way to do it. We don't need to go out and hire computer scientists or data analysts for sort of traditional farming roles. But what we can do is look for people who may not have the deep technical agronomic experience, but they do show some technology aptitude and the ability to work with the digital systems. Those people tend to be younger people who've grown up with the systems, the more digitally native type people. And finding those people and bringing them into the business is usually a really good idea to do, even if they don't have the strict agronomic background that you may think you need. So it's more around taking a step back, thinking through what your business really needs and what it needs to survive into the future. Now, there is a bit of a tendency to implement technology for the sake of implementing technology. So we need to be thoughtful about the kinds of things we're using. And the world is replete with ag tech companies selling all sorts of amazing solutions to problems that you might not have. So it's about understanding what technologies are out there and then being able to apply them to your business in a way that drives profitability and drives some of the goals that you have in the business. So it's not just adoption of technology for the sake of adopting technology. It's a really focused on what you're trying to achieve as a business and then fitting the skills and the technology into that business to help you achieve those goals. I think there's two sort of concurrent streams there. There's the upskilling of staff, and then there's the attracting of new talent. In terms of the upskilling of new staff, I think it's all around a growth mindset and the ability to learn and develop over time. The internet has so many free courses from Google and from Microsoft and Amazon. There is so much free information on the internet to try and help people do this exact thing, bridge their sort of traditional skills and bring in new technology skills. The information is out there, but oftentimes people don't really understand what they need to know and what the big world of computers means to their business. So I think having a growth mindset within the business and the ability to seek out information that you need to bring into the business and upskilling the people and staff you already have is a big piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is bringing in young people and people who have grown up with the technology, understand what the systems are and understand how you can implement the new technology in terms of AI or data analytics or even just, databases and data record keeping is something that is often overlooked. The really sort of basic fundamental Excel spreadsheet type work. So I think bringing in and attracting people who have those skills it's difficult to do, but the skills are often there, whereas you can upskill and uptrain people who are within the businesses oftentimes a lot easier because they've got that knowledge. The challenge you have upskilling people is that it's almost the unknown unknowns. It's what you don't know about the technology that you're trying to learn. So you're kind of trying to do two things at once, which can be difficult, which is where people who have much more exposure to lots of different technologies come in and they can try and lead some of that upskilling and lead some of that learning because they understand and they know the breadth of the technology that's out there. They can sort of bridge that gap a little bit. So I don't think it's a case of having to sort of move from one end of the spectrum to the other. But I think there's a really thoughtful way you can do this where you can leverage the skills of both, cohorts of people to, again, drive business outcomes, drive profitability, drive environmental sustainability, whatever the business goals are. There is an opportunity to upskill existing staff and bring in the skills that you need to allow you to achieve your business goals. It's the age-old problem in agriculture is that we're not only are we competing with all the other industries on the planet, but we're also competing with ourselves. So Broadacre is competing with orchardists, competing with high-intensity vegetables, competing with grazing, you name it. So we often lump agriculture as a monolith when in actuality there's so many different verticals within agriculture itself. So we're already competing on a diminished talent pool to begin with. So it's really, really difficult to bring these people in. It's not an easy thing to do. Concurrently, the rest of the world is trying to poach these people as well. And, when I came out of agricultural science uni, there was 8 jobs for every graduate. It would not surprise me if that number has doubled just because of the demand in agriculture and for good people. Now, Broadacre sort of cropping has always been on the forefront of the ag tech revolution ever since way back in the 90s when we were bringing in controlled traffic farming and auto steer and that sort of thing. And it's largely because it's a technology-driven industry from the get-go. It's tractors, it's implements, it's big broadacre systems that lend themselves really well to that style of agriculture that is a lot more technology-driven and can see a lot more yield efficiency by implementing new technology. So Broadacre is really well placed for this and have traditionally done it really, really well. What we're seeing is that the software has gotten so good and the hardware is catching up to the software. So we have satellite imagery almost to the hour nowadays. Couple that with variable yield mapping and variable application rates and variable irrigation, you can get really granular within paddocks as to how you apply fertilizer, herbicide, whatever applications you need to do. You can get really granular with that, all driven by really amazing software. The hardware is catching up to the software, and companies like John Deere and Case, and they bring out new tractors each week that have a new suite of software packages available. And so that the broadacre landscape has always moved with technology. And as we are moving into this sort of AI world that we're occupying now, that trend's not going to change. Broadacre lends itself really well to this style of system. What I think we tend to trip ourselves up on in this space is that we end up chasing the shiny technology a lot. So we try and implement things for the sake of implementing them. AI for, large language models in a tractor so you can speak to the tractor. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense because there's no real business return on that investment. But what we're seeing is that the software and the information that is moving quickly are ones that have real world impact to businesses and can affect bottom lines of these businesses. So it is a technology driven industry, but we need to be thoughtful about the types of technology we integrate into these systems. And there is a natural attrition of these sorts of things. The products and technologies that work and will continue to rise to the top, but there will be a lot of casualties along the way and ag tech companies with great ideas that don't solve business problems. So that's a natural part of the technology development pipeline in the world, but also within agriculture. It's got to have a really clear, distinct return on investment for broadacre croppers for it to make sense to include in their business. Broadacre croppers have such a great opportunity to leverage the new young people who are excited to come into the workforce. But before we go out looking for and trying to find the right people, we need to take it right back and think clearly about what the business needs. Have really clear business plans, have really clear business goals, and have a mission statement. And this comes into when we're searching for sort of younger talent. Gen Z, new people coming into the workforce, really want to work for mission-driven companies, and they really want to have their job have a purpose and be really clearly linked with my work, my job on broadacre cropping helps to feed the world, or I'm solving the environmental sustainability crisis in agriculture through my work as a broadacre agronomist. So being able to draw those clear linkages between the business mission and what the business is doing to the outcomes of their work is really key for younger people coming into the job market. It's something that has become really apparent over recent years, and it's something that was a bit of a shift from sort of previous generations who saw work as a job and a way to provide for their families and provide for themselves, but it wasn't really tied to their sense of identity, which is what we're seeing with a lot of younger people coming in. There's a multitude of jobs out there that these young people could be doing where, a lot of people in the younger demographic look up to YouTubers or content creation type roles, which are, clean in a nice air conditioned office. It's an aspirational employment opportunity for them to undertake. So how do we attract those people into a hot, dry, dirty farming role traditionally? How do we attract those people in? And I think it's through number one, creating that sort of drive and that mission statement and that, hey, we're doing something good for the world and for the environment, which is a really big draw for these people. Two, I think it's showcasing the beautiful workplace that we work in. So Broadacre farms are incredible places to be, and they're not a place that a lot of people get access to. So being really visual and being able to show potential employees that, you know, this is a real business doing amazing things in a beautiful landscape. It's creating that sense of desirability in the role, creating that sense of importance to the role is really important. So it's not just about dollars and cents. And I think I would sort of go out on a limb and say that it's more important for a lot of these young employees to come into a place that aligns with their personal sense of the world and how they want to contribute to the world, rather than just chasing the dollars. So I think if we can do the work up front to position these workplaces as really great, amazing places to work, which they are, makes it a lot more attractive for these younger people to come in, and those talent pipelines become a lot clearer and easier. One thing that we often don't talk about too much is the relationship networks within small towns and within businesses, within, you know, regional communities. It's a great connected community that a lot of these farms operate in, and highlighting that and highlighting the rich social lives that, you know, young people in the bush lead. It's different to what people see in the elsewheres of city life, but it's no less meaningful. In fact, it's oftentimes more meaningful because you have deeper, longer term relationships with people. And I think there's a real opportunity to create a draw card for these young people coming into the bush and coming into regional communities. And I think there's an opportunity there for, you know, good employers to lead that charge and help sort of we hear it time and time again, is bringing people back to the bush and back to regional communities. And I think offering great places of employment with, you know, really well documented and well identified and clearly articulated value propositions for young people entering the workforce is so important. And I think businesses could do a lot more good for their community and rebuilding, you know, regional community centres by showcasing their businesses more. And I think that's a really big draw for younger people. One thing that we do need to be conscious of, and it's something that we all have to grapple with, is there's lots of other much higher paid employment opportunities out there, particularly mining and, you know, other industries that pay a lot more than agriculture can, but they don't offer the intrinsic fundamentals that agriculture does. So I think it's being creative about how we market these positions and being really clear about the value proposition and showing young people in industry that these are really important, amazing careers in the bush. Look, I'm no technologist, to caveat everything that I'm saying, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But what we're seeing with the large language models that are coming out now is really amazing technology that was developed on top of a corpus of knowledge that we've been building for 30 years. So all of these large language models have been trained on the internet, which is a really amazingly structured source of knowledge, structured data that has gone into training these large language models. It's incredible technology, and for what they've been able to achieve is no short of amazing. The problem we have in agriculture is that we don't have the same corpus of data. By that, I mean there's no centralized location where you can train large-scale models on crop data, for instance, or even if we talk about, computer vision, there's no 30-year timeline built stack of weed images for us to train a model on. We have some information on that, and we do have some photos to train these models on, weed identification, for instance, but it's nowhere near the level that we have with, digital information ideas that we have on the internet, which is what's driven the explosion of these large language models. So I think when we talk about AI in agriculture, we're really talking about data availability in agriculture, which has not been developed at all. A lot of farms individually really struggle with AI capture, data capture, data storage, and data analysis and decision making. We're just at the very start of that process for a lot of businesses. So we are miles off training models off that data, just because it's the data required to train really accurate models is immense, and there's no real one-stop shop for that data within agriculture and Broadacre in particular. The caveat to that is that John Deere, Case, all of these sort of large agricultural machinery companies have been collecting that data for a long time. So they have yield data, they have satellite data, they have, in some cases, fertilizer application data, but it's fragmented. It's all over the world. It's in different soil types. It's not a complete picture of what goes into agriculture and what goes into farming. So I think we are a long way off seeing an AI agronomist who can tell you how to run a farm, or who can direct robotics tractors to run a farm, just because I don't believe at this point in time we have the deep data set to achieve that. What I think there is immense value for is for growers and sort of progressive farmers to start capturing that data and start structuring it and keeping it and putting it into a system that you may not use it today, but you might use it in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, when the data becomes much more valuable and much more meaningful, because you'd have a long period of time of collection. You see some cases on the internet, people are positing that data is worth more than the yield of your crop. And I don't think that's entirely accurate right now. But what I do see is that the data that farms are generating is so valuable and so underutilized that it's something that every farm should have a data collection and storage plan, and look to expand that in whatever way they can, whether it's IoT or, weather stations at the very least, soil tests, that sort of thing. Growers need to be putting that data and information away now, so that when we do have these rapid advances in technology, you've got that corpus of knowledge to build on. So I think there will be areas where we can make massive strides, and maybe potentially the weather prediction side of things is something that we will see get a lot better. And massive governmental organizations all over the world are running supercomputers trying to model out what the weather is going to do in 10 days' time, let alone 3 months' time. But I think that's something that we could see AI play a really big part in allowing growers to get more granular with their forecasting. But I think it's going to be an interesting ride to see where the AI race takes us. I think large language models have limited impact on farm at this stage. I think there is some interesting work being done around helping growers talk to their data. So if you have a sort of farm management system which you can overlay a large language model onto, that then you can say, hey, how many mils of rain did we have over the last 3 months? And the AI can find that information and repeat it back to you. But that's an aid for the grower to make decisions rather than any sort of revolutionary change in farm management practices. So I think we might be a long way off seeing fully automated farms, but there will be a number of useful tools that come out. And I would sort of suggest that growers uptake the things that will make a difference to their business here and now, and be understanding that the future is coming, but it might be coming a little bit slower than we think.